Alright guys, welcome to this episode of Creature Feature, and we're going to do a very popular one, and that's the ball python. These guys have become a designer snake pretty much, coming in all sorts of colors and patterns and stuff. Now it's quite neat, and they're actually really easy to take care of. Some have issues with shedding, which we'll get to in a little bit. We've got Kahlua in there. This is Pixel, and then this is Mojave, which is simply a Mojave type ball python. This one is called a calider. Basically took a calico and a spider, which are two different morphs, and bred them together. And then Kahlua here is just simply a normal. She's a beautiful normal, though. That's one that you would find in the wild in Africa. So that's why they come from South Africa. And they call the ball python because when they're scared, they typically roll up into a ball to protect their head. Also called the royal python, again, because royalty wear them as a nice necklace around, or as you can see here, a pretty little bracelet for a night out on the town. Now, setting them up is pretty easy. A lot of people go with a bin setup, but I'm not too keen on the bin setup. If you are on a budget, I mean, these things aren't cheap. You got to budget a lot of money, at least $100 probably for the snake, at least twice that for the enclosure. Keep in mind vet visits, all the extras, the heat pad and the controller aren't cheap either. So they're not really a cheap, affordable pet, but they are easy. Once they're set up, they are easy to go. I prefer the front opening glass tanks like these Exoterras. They're nice because instead of having to undo clips to take off the lid on the top, I simply open the front. I'm feeling right face to face with the snake. Snakes, especially in the wild, these guys are so domesticated and calm, they don't have the issue. But in the wild, if a snake sees something coming down on top, like your hand in a cage, they're thinking bird of prey, I'm gonna get eaten. So they're often not gonna be like in that situation, especially when you're trying to feed them. That's not a good way to feed them, dangling a rat by the tail on top. They're not gonna like that. We'll show feeding a corn snake in one of the other episodes, but a good technique is to grab the rodent behind the neck, hold it low in front of the enclosure of the snake, and you'll smell it with that tongue you'll see coming in and out, and then bam, hit it and go in. You want the tank to be large enough that it can pretty much extend its full body out. They're not a large snake, maybe 4.5 feet at most. Let's see, come on Chloe, how big are you when we stretch you all the way out? So she can get across here pretty well. She's got a nice dish of water, a hide. Now, we are providing the light here just visually to brighten it up because we have people coming in, we want it to look nice, but you don't need to use light with these guys. They get all the heat from their bellies. So again, we're gonna use one of our little heat pads here. This one's way too small for the size of the tank. You want an appropriately sized pad that's gonna cover about 1/3 to maybe even half of that tank. And then again, using our controller to make sure we're not burning down our house by just plugging it in and letting it go. People have done that. They've taped the plastic from the heat pad right to the underneath of the tank, plugged it in, and then come back and it's cracked and shattered that glass. So that's one of the things you gotta be really careful for. And also then you could burn your snake, so you wanna be cautious. These guys, if they are having a rough shed like we see my little friend Mojave's having here, one of the things you can do is mist their enclosure. Now you don't mist them regularly, coming from a drier area. If they get too much water, they could get a respiratory infection. So you do wanna keep them fairly dry, but when it comes to shedding time, give them a little misting there. You can even give them a pillowcase to rub around on. But you'll see we've got some rocks in here to help with the shed and that kind of stuff to ease. But when you do get a snake that has a bit of shed stuck, if you're not able to easily just move it with your fingernails there, one trick I do is I take a pillowcase, soak it in some lukewarm water, wring it out, and then just pop the snake in there, tie it shut, and they'll roll around in there for a couple hours, even leave them overnight in their enclosure so it's safe and they're not getting out. But they'll rub with that soft, wet pillowcase and most of that'll come off. The other issue that they tend to have is they'll get stuck eye caps because they do shed that skin right over their eyes, and we don't want that to build up and cause them to be essentially blind. So again, if you can't take your thumb and rub it off very quickly or with some tweezers, a little trick is to take some duct tape, wrap it backwards on your finger so that the sticky part is out, and just gently rub it across, and that'll really start to remove those eye caps quite easily. Mineral oil is another great one as well for these guys. But you see they can hang on by their tail as they're moving around. So that's all we're going to learn about right now for these ball pythons. I hope you enjoyed learning about them. I think we're going to check out the ferrets next because they look like they need to do some playing, and it's always a fun time watching those guys. So stay tuned.